Hey everybody, it's time to talk about the season finale. No, the season wrap-up. We're done with the season finale. We're at the wrap-up of Star Trek Voyager's first season. I'm here with Clay. Clay, how are you?
I have been better.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all? So I guess
it finally got me. It finally got me. I've been dancing through the raindrops for 2.5 years, but COVID finally got me.
It's the... out of all the things that you need to be dodging in life, it's a decent one to get hit with, I guess, at this point, right? You're dodging cars. Raindrops are probably a little less severe than COVID at this point, but you want to be...
oh, man, I'm gacked up to the eyeballs on NyQuil and Paxlovid, so look out, decency.
You're eating your old man supplements of vitamin D and just laying in the sun whenever you have a chance just to do... Whatever,
trying to figure out ways to get those cleaning products under my skin.
Yeah. Or what was the fish cleaner, the fish tank cleaner thing?
I don't even remember that one.
That was a fun one. That was a good one. That was one of those great 2020 layered or 2021 layered ones where a woman claimed that her husband had taken fish cleaner because it's some chemical. It was one of the chemicals that Trump had said was like a cure for this, without knowing what the fuck he was talking about. And so a woman came, and there was a story that her husband had drank a whole aquarium full of this chemical, and it killed him because Trump had said that he was supposed to do that. And of course, the first reaction is just like, oh, God damn it, Trump, how dare you just spout off at the mouth, and all these gullible citizens of the United States are just going to buy into your word. And there was the typical outrage. And then a week went by and it turned out that she was, she's a heavy Democratic donor who poisoned her husband with that stuff.
No kidding.
And played it off as it was a Trump thing because Trump said to do it. But it was one of those great seesaw news stories of that era of news that we're still kind of living through right now, where it's just the story comes out and everyone gets fired up, and then the truth comes out and no one really ever remembers that's what actually happened. Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
I don't know. Although, I mean, and you also feel bad for the guy, because when you hear the story first, you're like, fucking idiot. Of course you're going to die if you drink aquarium cleaner. And then you realize he's been poisoned, and you go, I feel bad for that guy. I guess he was smarter than knowing not to drink aquarium cleaner. All right, we're here. Clay is COVID. We are loosey-goosey because our backlog is gone, Clay, because we haven't recorded in about a month at this point almost, because I had to have back surgery recently, and I'm recovering now. So I had a disc taken out of my back. I can now sit again, which is fun. It's been nice to sit after a month of not sitting. I can stand up. I can do all the things I need to do. So our backlog is gone, Clay, and this is basically live. So the people who are have been watching the season finale last week are now basically getting our updated thoughts, except we don't remember any of our thoughts from the season.
Nope.
So I'm going to open this by asking you, how many seasons of Star Trek have we done as a podcast?
Is this you and me, or just the whole show?
The whole show. You've done most of them, but the whole show.
Let's see. 18.
Not new Trek either. Sorry. So
not new Trek. Okay.
I'll add new Trek in. So go ahead.
Oh, gee, now I got to do the math over again. 15. I'm going to say 23.
28.
Ah.
Yeah. That's a lot of TV that we've watched.
Yeah. You want to know what I did? I completely forgot about Enterprise.
Oh, that'll get you. That'll get you. Enterprise had 4. The others had 7. TOS had 3, and then we've got Discovery, Picard, and Strange New Worlds in there. So we've got 28 of them. Is this season of Voyager in the top 10?
Just for us, or
just for us, for our ratings, our rating system. As we give out the rankings, does this season of Voyager make it into the top 10?
It feels like it should. I'm gonna say. Ooh, it's tough because this is a short season too. I'm going to say yes.
All right. Well, hold on that. We'll get to the answer in a little bit. So this is the first season of Star Trek Voyager that we just finished. Had 15 episodes, had the pilot Caretaker, wrapped up with Learning Curve. So I guess there's 16 technically, but the first one is a two-parter. It started in 1995 in January, wrapped up in 1995 in May. So it went by pretty quickly there. Pretty short season. I thought, it's been kind of interesting. Do you have any, like, as we're watching this on Patreon and stuff now, we're doing Strange New Worlds, and we did Picard at the same time as Voyager too, right? So we've had an interesting comparison between Voyager, Picard, and Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think it was a good season of old 90s Star Trek to pair with the two new seasons. Would you agree with that? Like, it felt like even if it wasn't a balls to the wall, great all-timer season of Star Trek, it was a good, like, starting point or like a calibration point for me to realize where the other shows were. Like, it clearly showed why Picard was so terrible. And it's also kind of interesting to compare to Strange New Worlds in a way to see like where the shows are going in that kind of a sense. I don't know. Did you have any opening thoughts about what you can remember about season 1 of Voyager at this point, where we went through Caretaker, Parallax, time and again, all the way to Faces, Jetrel, Learning Curve, all that stuff? Do you have anything that's going to stick out in your head as like your first takeaway from this stuff?
A lot of quantum anomalies.
Yeah, a lot of spatial anomalies going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think comparing it to Strange New World is actually pretty interesting because they're not really that dissimilar in a lot of ways, because this does kind of, well, I was going to say they both have overlapping character-based storyline stuff that they kind of bring over into each episode on top of the episodic stuff. But Strange New Worlds does it more, I think, than Voyager does. But I guess they are both kind of similar in that they are the third swing at reviving the franchise, and is different than the two that came before it, but also very similar than the two that came before it.
Yeah.
I think they're probably most similar in that most of the crew is fairly likable.
Yeah,
and
they are similar that way.
Yeah, and they kind of have everybody kind of. There's nobody who's really kind of like too grating, except, well, I don't really care for Neelix at this point, but generally they're all pretty solid characters. As for the content of the episodes,
I feel there's similar to Strange New Worlds there too. Like, I guess that the Strange New Worlds thing, I think, is that what I feel like the first season of Voyager and Strange New Worlds at the same time. Listen to patreon.com/the Penske File if you want all that coverage. But it basically comes down to both shows at this point feel like a comfortable zone where they're not really pressing anything.
Yeah.
It's like the 90s Voyager goes down in a different way than the Strange New Worlds does, but I feel that both of them are like, all right, like, we hit a double and we're on base here. There's no outs. We're not really going to press at this point. Like, we're going to see what happens. Let a couple of these episodes out. Don't screw things up too much and kind of stick to tried and true formula things, and hope that the strength of the cast is going to be enough to carry us for 15 episodes or 10 in Strange New Worlds. So I feel that they're similar in that way as well, because I would say that, like, they are the cast thing is probably the main point that I think that both of them are fairly likable, and that's what's elevated both shows to this point.
Yeah, I would say one way that they are actually rather different is in even though they are each the third iteration of a franchise reboot, Voyager is kind of trying to keep the wheel steady while trying a couple new things, coming off of two of the best series you could possibly have from the franchise.
Yep.
And Strange New Worlds is basically trying to right the ship while keeping it steady and trying a couple new things, coming on the heels of two of the worst shows in the franchise.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they're going to meet in the middle in some sort of happy medium thing. Do you have
well, if Janeway shows up on Strange New Worlds, then I think
God damn it.
that'll be where the crossover happens.
Yeah, there was something on Discord someone had pointed. It's one of those Trek filleting websites that just needs to generate content, but it was something about Janeway considering coming back for some live action show. I don't think we know Janeway enough to know how bad of an idea that will be, outside of the fact that it seems like a bad idea, but I guess we'll get into this kind of stuff.
I'm all for it, man. I've said for years, I think what they did wrong with one of the things they did wrong with the Kelvin universe is they didn't get weird enough and like really start messing with continuity, since everything just was like out the window. Like I wanted to see the Kelvin guys versus the Borg, that kind of thing. Bring in Janeway. Let's have her show up on Strange New Worlds. They hit a quantum anomaly, and somehow they end up 500 years in the future or whatever, and Janeway's there on the ship. Why not?
Just Pegasus it from Enterprise, right?
Yeah.
There must be some episode they can slip this in that they went back in time.
They figured out a way to get Scotty onto TNG. They can't figure out a way to get Janeway onto Strange New Worlds.
If you had to sum up this season in a word for Voyager, what do you think you would say? I think I would say comfort. I think that's kind of a tropey, tried and kind of beating a dead horse type thing. But I was pleasantly surprised by this season of Voyager, especially coming off of Enterprise and not really expecting much. I thought this was like a very watchable season of 90s Star Trek that I don't know if it had maybe one great episode in my opinion, and the rest of them were all kind of middling to like be enjoyable and stuff like that. But I think my main takeaway was really just like, I didn't mind watching this season, which, coming off of the last 4 seasons of Enterprise that we went through was kind of a big deal. And we talked about that a lot in the podcast, but it definitely just shows and it highlights that the cast is very, very much like the most important thing for these shows. Like outside of the setup, the setup is kind of forgettable and you can do whatever you want with it, or you can take it as far as you want, or you can abandon it when you want. But you really can't screw up the cast too much, or you can't make the cast. You can't enterprise the cast, which is to have like no one with any kind of personality in it whatsoever. And Voyager to this point, we'll see how long the fumes can run with that being like the thing that's driving you. But I enjoy the characters so far more than I feel like I know more about the characters than I will be able to remember the episode plots for this season. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes, I am definitely with you on that one. I was going to say the word that popped into my head immediately was pleasant.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
And I think the casts, having a cast where everybody kind of has something that they do for the show, and having everybody kind of has something that is a unique character trait about them. It goes so far on these shows because there are so many people on them that having like a shorthand to who everybody is in a way that is excuse me, in a way that is engaging and memorable, just really, I think, is like over 50% of the work of a Star Trek show, frankly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, if you compare Discovery to Enterprise, I think they both kind of fail in the same way, because Enterprise has a lot of people on the ship, and you don't really know much about any of them except for like the main 3. And Discovery, it's kind of the same thing, where it's like you've got Saru, Michael, Tilly, and Stamets, and that's kind of it for characters you know anything about, at least for the first couple seasons. And so you end up having these characters play every role in a story, and it just gets exhausting.
Yeah.
Because Star Trek has always been built so well on, well, I should say ever since TNG, because TOS was mainly those 3 guys, but
yes.
The engine of everything from TNG on in a good Star Trek show is having multiple people who can play roles in the story, so you don't end up having some characters who just seem to know everything for the given situation, or and and who bring different viewpoints that can kind of clash when they need to and stuff like that.
Weaknesses too, like different
weaknesses.
different inabilities to do things, because we haven't run into a Discovery story where Michael is unable to accomplish her goal, but you can you can see old Star Trek episodes, older 90s ones or even the 60s, where the character does not have the skill set to complete something, and that's kind of the point of the episode in some ways.
Right. Could you imagine if Star Trek Discovery had done, maybe I'm giving it too little credit here, but if Star Trek Discovery had done City on the Edge of Forever, and the end of that episode had to be Michael Burnham actively letting somebody get hit by a car and die. I don't think that's how that plays out in Discovery. No. I think somehow Michael figures out a way to be the savior of humanity. And
the car is driven by Soong.
yes. A Soong or a Noonien Singh, somewhere in there. One of those is driving. Bear is driving. I think that was the biggest surprise for me from Voyager is I think coming off of Enterprise, where the cast was pretty bland. They do kind of hit you right away with everybody has a kind of angle coming into this world. And it makes it a lot more interesting. Even, I think, as I've said from the beginning of the season, the least interesting character to me is Tom Paris, because he's just so middle of the road milquetoast. Yeah. At least at this moment, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess are you giving Neelix their points for being irritating, or you just think that Paris is a bigger mistake than Neelix is?
At least even Neelix has we find out later in the season that he's being hunted, or he's got a history of his genocide wiping his family out or something. And, you can kind of extrapolate out, his pleasant demeanor is hiding this horrible thing he's running from. Paris is just a guy. Yeah. He's done literally, there have been episodes where we haven't even seen him. He's got 2 lines.
Yeah. 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 I'd say that I guess since we're on the characters, we might as well stick with them there. We can do a loose power rankings so far. Do you have a clear number one, or is it a tough decision for you to put the best character of the show so far?
Best character of the show, I think, is probably the Doctor.
Yeah. I would agree.
And who would I put behind him?
Tuvok's my number 2.
Yeah, I would say Tuvok. I think Tuvok is a better character, but I think Janeway gets more screen time.
Yes.
And so I think she's interesting enough to me that I would probably put her at number 2, or I should say number 3, if not number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think B'Elanna is probably next for me, actually.
Yeah, I might be surprising here, and I'd say Chakotay. Actually, even though he's not a well-conceived character and he's been poorly executed, I'm still early enough in Voyager where I have this I have this hope that's not going to pan out, but I'm still you can do it, show. You can figure out what this guy is going to be all about, and I know that they're not going to do that. But whenever Chakotay's in a scene, I'm happy to see him there. In a way, I feel that way for the top 3, which would be the Doctor, Tuvok, and Chakotay for me. The other characters, I'm less interested if they are the focus of an episode at this point. Mm-hmm. So that's what leaves those 3 in my top rankings. Anyway.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, Chakotay's interesting because he's such a great idea for a character. That's the whole thing with this show, right? Is it's such a good idea, and the setup is so interesting, or has the potential to be so interesting. But then they kind of leave all the interesting stuff on the floor. Yeah. And so on top of that, Chakotay's in this weird space where even though he should be the most conflicted person on the ship, he has 0 conflict. Yeah. Yeah. And that really matters. Strange.
It seems they try sometimes. He punched that guy in Learning Curve, I think, right? It was the Maquis, don't do that kind of a thing, but it doesn't really stick.
Yeah, and I think it's a failure of the show. I guess if you want to call it a failure of the show, that they don't do more interesting stuff with the whole Maquis subplot, or overplot, honestly. Yeah. Which leaves him a bit in the dust, because that is the core of his characters, is someone who has to straddle the line between these two worlds and figure out how to make it work. And if you're not exploring that in your show, then all you have left for him to do is show up and say woefully incorrect Native American mythology.
It's a coyote, not a wolf. Do you think that... I was wondering this, thinking about this first season and how Star Trek has changed a little bit. Do we undervalue... I'm using we in like the cultural sense, I guess. Do we undervalue how different the setups of the three 90s Trek shows were from each other? I'm kind of impressed by the balls of the show, although it's hard now because I'm only going off of like what they do with the modern shows, really. So it's hard to tell what the mindset was back there. But like take DS9 for instance. Like DS9's pilot is explicitly setting up its main character to hate the character of Picard at that point, right? So pretty ballsy. It's also a space station and it's not going anywhere, which is another interesting choice to make and stuff like that. And so it has all these things that are like, oh, they're really not just copying the TNG thing at this point. Voyager has another layer of it, which is like we're a billion miles away from everybody else that you've ever seen. All the aliens are going to be new. We're stuck out here with a hostile crew that half of the crew wants to kill the other half of the crew constantly. I wonder if I might not ever say it enough that I think that they were pretty ballsy in their early production with at least the ideas of what they were going to set the shows up to be in a way that I feel that modern TV particularly would be much more of like, what's the nostalgic angle? What do people like? Let's copy that again and give it like, we'll make this one an animated show or something, like that'll be the difference instead of anything fundamental to it.
Well, I think Discovery deserves a lot of credit for doing that, for doing the same thing, because I think Discovery's setup is the most unique setup of any of the Trek shows, because it's not captain centric. It's about someone a character who gets busted down in rank and has to kind of, it does something, is the cause of an intergalactic war, who has to kind of like redeem herself and whatnot. And that for a Star Trek show, that's very different.
Yeah. Very personal interpersonal character in a way that the other shows aren't that way. You know what I mean? Like the other shows are more structured around their plots, I guess would be the way to describe it. And Discovery is more like focusing in on Burnham as a person, a real person.
Yeah, which I think is
laudable.
Is no, I think it's great to take that kind of swing, especially if you're. It's interesting in retrospect because, like, I think we've talked about this a bit before. I don't know if Strange New Worlds gets the pat on the back that it's been getting if that's the first show out of the gate.
Right. Yeah. It would have been seen as redundant.
Yeah, and I think Discovery might actually, if Discovery was the third show, it might have actually maybe even we would have been like, oh, okay, they're trying something different. I give them a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 90s Trek shows, they are very different. I think Deep Space Nine of all of them, well, I should say, yeah, I guess of all of them, Deep Space Nine, they kind of forced themselves to stay different given the setup that they were in.
Yeah.
Voyager, while the setup is different on paper, it's still a captain and a crew on a ship.
Yeah, they can abandon the concept pretty easily and not have it seem strange.
Yeah, and do you know was this because Deep Space Nine was not horribly popular, right?
Right.
So was Voyager and this setup kind of going back to basics? Was that seen as a response to the viewer perception of Deep Space Nine? Because if so, even more similarities to Strange New World.
Yeah, Voyager was. It wasn't that DS9 was still relatively early in its series at this point, but they definitely wanted to go back to a starship traveling around, going different places was the thing about Voyager, and just I think the producers and executives never really understood DS9, and Voyager was seen as that kind of, we know that a starship with a captain is a successful template for this stuff. Yeah. So let's do that again. And the difference here will be it's in a different part of the galaxy. We don't know. There's no Klingons, basically.
Right. Yeah.
It's yeah, and even that sounds negative towards Voyager, but I think Voyager's setup, like I said it earlier in the podcast, but if I were able to reboot a Star Trek, I'd reboot Voyager at this point.
Same.
Yeah. It's got the most. Yeah. I can't improve on DS9. TNG is perfect for what it is, but Voyager, as a modern series, I think there's a lot of like actual character work and like philosophical differences that you can like, because the ship basically mimics, like if you want to make it super modern and super on the nose, you'd have to avoid being too overt with this, but it kind of mimics the political culture in America at this point. Mm-hmm. You can split it. It's basically a 50-50, one side versus the other side, and you can, through this journey, find a sort of meeting of the minds, or at least the things that you have in common, or you rediscover what your version of the Federation would look like if you got back and stuff like that, in like an improved sense. I think you could do a lot with it.
Thank God the Voyager didn't have Twitter.
I know.
The Maquis and the Federation never would have seen eye to eye.
Elon Musk buys Voyager this time.
And then backs out at the last second.
Is that done? Is he backed out? I haven't been on it, so I don't know if he's trying to get out, right? He's trying to like
I think he's trying to get out. Yeah. He's been fighting with one of those Onion websites, Hard Times. I think it's either hard. It's the video game one. I think it's the video game one.
No,
the video game one had been doing jokey headlines about him, and he ended up getting into like a
Twitter
flame
spat.
war with them. Yeah, which is like okay.
It's the Elon thing is funny because news has to take him seriously because he's so wildly successful as a like a venture capital type person, or like taking these companies and doing things with them, that like there's only a story if they build it up to he has some big plan about it, when actually he's just a billionaire who's addicted to Twitter and he thinks that it's worth something, and that's like the whole story. But you have to churn around. So we'll see. We'll see if he buys it. If not, he can buy Star Trek Voyager for $40 on Voodoo, and he can watch it with us. We talked about the characters, talked about the episodes. So did you have any standout clear favorite of the season? I've got the rankings. I know that we were laughing about whether or not we could remember. I went through 5 minutes before we started, and I went through and I highlighted the highs and the lows. And there are 5 of the best and 5 of the worst. Do you remember what you would consider to be like your standout episode from this one?
Nope.
Would you say
what did I say that it was?
Would you say that you liked you had 1, 2, 3, 4 4s in this season.
Wow. Okay.
So you had
4 out of 15. That's pretty impressive.
It is, yeah. So going in order, it was Parallax, which was the one that they look into the spatial anomaly and see themselves in the distance. Eye of the Needle, which is the Romulan 20 years ago that they communicate with.
Yep.
Emanations, which was the one we did with Sean, which is Harry Kim goes to the afterlife.
Oh boy.
He's in like that little
Harry
pod.
Kim.
Harry Kim is in that little pod with those people on the other planets, and he gets like sucked into the caves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
And then the last one was Prime Factors, which was they run into that race that has the transporter technology that could send them home, basically, but it's like a reverse first contact issue. So which one of those did you like the best?
I feel like from the little that I remember, I would probably say either Eye of the Needle or Emanations.
Yeah, you really liked Emanations, and I would have said the Eye of the Needle would have been your second one.
Yeah. Eye of the Needle, I think, gets a little bit of points taken off because it is so similar to that Deep Space Nine episode in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I really did like that story. And Emanations was, that had a lot of really interesting kind of fucked up ethical stuff that I think is always fun when it comes to Star Trek.
It probably had the most I would say, so if I were ranking them, our top ranking here to get it over is Prime Factors is 1 because I gave it a 5 because that was my favorite episode of the season. And then after that it would have been Eye of the Needle, Emanations, Parallax, and then Faces comes in last place for the top 5. Faces is the B'Elanna, comes a Klingon and a human.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I liked. I'll probably mostly remember. I gave Prime Factors a 5 because I really enjoyed it, but I think the episode I'm going to remember most is Eye of the Needle from this one. That had the most. That had the most season 1 Voyager story. It was like the one that had to happen, kind of. That's how I feel about Eye of the Needle. I think it's still a 4, and I think that Prime Factors is probably a better standalone one, but those are our top 5 anyway.
Yeah, Eye of the Needle. Star Trek is really good at giving you those small stories that put a face on conflict and war and struggle.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good one where you kind of, you're in a the concept of your show is galactic, but the stakes of your show are very personal.
Yeah. Got to get home.
Yeah, and when you can pull that off, well, I think that's about as good as it gets with Star Trek.
Yeah, I think it's a vital one to set up the heartbreak of not being able to get home, and it was the best episode to do that in the first season, I think. But I like Prime Factors. I just liked the reverse of the Prime Directive, where the aliens have the technology and they're not going to give it to you, so you have to come up with a reason of why you can steal it. So I thought that was pretty good. Our worst 5 are backloaded in the last half of the season. I don't know if you remember specifically. I thought the second half of the season was worse than the first half, and it seems that the numbers bear it out. So of the last 5 episodes, 4 of them are in our bottom 5.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I'll go in order here. So the actual 5th worst, which is like the best one of these, and the other way to look at it is Phage, which came early, which was the introduction of the Vidians.
Mm-hmm.
Then the last 4, they're all the same rating, so we have to kind of sort out which ones you remember best and worst. Heroes and Demons, which was the Beowulf and the holodeck with the Doctor episode. Cathexis was the one that Chakotay fell into a coma and they had the invisible alien on board.
Oh, yeah.
Jitrell was the nuclear Oppenheimer, the nuclear bomb for Neelix episode.
Yep.
And then Learning Curve was the Tuvok trains, the crew, the Maquis people in the finale.
Yeah, I feel like Heroes and Demons has to be the worst of that group.
Yeah. This is one of those weird things where I remembered what Heroes and Demons was. I had to look up what Cathexis was. And then I was like, oh, yeah, it's that one. So maybe that's just
true.
That's a bad way of saying that maybe the title matters a lot. But I agree that Heroes and Demons was a pretty lame holodeck episode there too. It's probably better than Jitrell and Learning Curve. I would say I'll agree with you. I think it's Heroes and Demons is the worst one. Would you agree that Phage is the best of those, the Vidian introduction?
Yeah, I would say
that's my memory. Yeah, that's my memory of it. The other 2 are just kind of forgettable.
Yeah, the Chakotay, the brain dead Chakotay one, I remember having like good bones to that story, but like the execution is just all over the place and not really doesn't really pull its weight.
No, that's how I'd remember it as well. So that's it. So the worst 5 are Phage. Then we'll say it's Jitrell, Learning Curve, Cathexis, and Heroes and Demons. That's all the way to the bottom. Yeah, unfortunately, here a holodeck episode ends up at the bottom, as it should. So I asked you at the top of the episode if this made, what did I ask you? If it made the top 10 of the seasons, of 28 seasons?
Yes.
So I guess that I have to do a little bit of math here. Would you say that this one is better than all of the modern Trek series that we've seen, Trek seasons? Because we have not ranked those. So if any of I think the only competition you'd have is Strange New Worlds. Would you rather have Strange New Worlds or Voyager season 1?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm going to say Strange New Worlds is can abstain from voting just because the season's not over yet.
Okay.
But I would take Voyager season 1 of Voyager over
everything else.
5 seasons, three seasons of Discovery and 2 seasons of Picard. Yes,
I would agree too. So that doesn't really impact things. So it ended up with a 3.0 on our ratings, which puts it in 10th place on the seasons. So it just made it. It's at a 3.0. It's in 10th place. There's only one first season that's better, Clay. And I think it's kind of obvious, but do you know what it is? In our opinion, anyway.
TOS?
Yeah, it's TOS. TOS's first season remains the best first season. Do you think that that's fair? I think that's fair.
I think so. Yeah. There's nothing that's happened in any of the other first. Well, there hasn't been a season of other first season of other Star Trek shows that has been filled with iconic episodes
that are
like
good,
genre-defining episodes.
Yes, that's TOS season 1 is always going to be the winner because it has the iconic. Great. It has like multiple iconic great episodes in the first season, so it's always going to win that competition. But Voyager season 1 is the best of the rest. The only honestly, when you think about it, the only thing that's really in the running for the other ones is that Duets is in DS9's first season. That's the only reason that it has any consideration. But I still think Voyager's is better overall. But our top 10 is DS9 and TNG, and then TOS season 1, and then Voyager season 1. So.
Wait, sorry, say that again?
The top 10 are it's a whole mix of DS9 and TNG.
Oh,
so
I see.
It's DS9 season 4, 5, and 6, then TNG 6, then DS9 7, TNG 3, 5, then TOS 1, TNG 4, and then in 10th place is Voyager season 1. That's our ratings.
Gotcha.
Makes sense. But yeah, TOS season 1 will be the best forever and ever and ever. I guess we can wrap it up with a little bit of Strange New Worlds. I wasn't here for the last Strange New Worlds you do with Christian and stuff like that. I haven't seen that episode yet. But do you... I know I just asked you about whether or not you would keep Strange New Worlds over Voyager, and you said you'd go with Voyager just because Strange New Worlds hasn't finished yet. Say Strange New Worlds continues on this course, that it just it does what it's been doing for the past 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Would you trade them at that point? I think that my reason for asking this is that when I put them in context, and I don't know how objective I'm being about whether or not I think they're better or whether or not it's just this purely like I'm familiar with Voyager a little bit more and I'm subjectively predisposed to like that, obviously. I think that comparing them like that kind of tamps down my excitement for Strange New Worlds. Interesting. Like, I think a lot
just can't let yourself enjoy it at all, can you?
Well, I like, people can sign up for the Patreon to listen. I think Strange New Worlds is a 3 out of 5, but compared to what we've been getting, it's like the greatest 3 out of 5 that I've ever seen.
Oh, 100%.
You know? It's hard to compare them because when I compare, like, would I rather have this sort of not middling, but like semi-good season of 90s Star Trek Voyager if I had to have the DVD set or was the only way to watch it? Or would I get these DVDs of Strange New Worlds? I think even being unfamiliar with Voyager, I'd rather have Voyager to rewatch at this point, for that season 1 at least.
Yeah, I would agree with you because I was thinking about, the thing I was thinking about was the characters. And I find most of the characters, and not that I don't like the characters in Strange New World, because I do, but there's just enough of that new Star Trek stink on them that makes me not like, they haven't made it to the point where I would want to like really revisit them.
Yeah.
Whereas Voyager has that charm to it, that 90s Trek charm that I think is, for whatever reason, it's once it was out of the bottle, they couldn't figure it out again.
Yeah.
After 9/11, I guess.
Changed everything.
Yeah. But and so I would probably say I would go with Voyager, yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. People can listen to the coverage of Strange New Worlds, but it's there's something There's just something. There's something there. Like it's probably more of a discussion for the Strange New Worlds podcast and stuff. But I'm just because with the new Jurassic Park movie just came out, and there's a lot of the reviews are terrible for that movie.
Really? But
a lot of the reviews are just like, this is clearly a movie where a company owns an IP, and they're just trying to do. Apparently, there's a fairly direct homage to the T-Rex scene from the first one, like the mud in the footprint.
Oh yeah,
scene.
I mean it's in the trailer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the trailer or anything. So
sorry.
It's that kind of. It's that kind of thing. It's like you wonder like how far Strange New Worlds can go with just being the best copy of what came before it in a way that's not horribly offensive and not like annoying to watch at the same time. But if it's anything like Jurassic Park, it has to come to an end some point, right? Like that has to end. And I wonder if Strange New Worlds will improve to a point where that's not a concern anymore. I could see that happening because I think it has the bones to improve in a way that maybe will be different from what we see from Voyager, but we'll see. I just don't know. It might just be a different era. It might just be over, and that's the end of it in the way that Jurassic Park seems to be over too.
Yeah, I think I think Strange New World has a decent amount of runway in front of it, because they have been. I think they've handled that stuff fairly well as far as being referential without being just like, hey, look at this. There's been a couple spots like in not this last episode, but the one before that.
Spuck-a-muck.
Yeah, they pretty much shot for shot redo the fight scene from Amok Time, and they used the music and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I'm never going to complain. You could use that music over people having dinner, and I'm not going to complain about it because the music is so good.
It's in Cable Guy.
Yeah, that's how I first heard it. I first heard that in Cable Guy, not Star Trek. But I think so far, Strange New World has avoided being a trip down memory lane the way that some of these other things tend to be.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if it can keep that up and kind of like break out of orbit a bit more into its own thing, I think it has the potential to be very good. But, who knows if that's what they even want, because the more people,
want
clap like seals every time they see something they remember.
Yep.
The more they're going to just keep feeding it to you.
Yeah. We'll see. Well, if you guys are interested in our Strange New World stuff, obviously I said it's at Patreon, patreon.com/Lipinski File. We did all that. We did Picard Season 2, which was... This is just a modern Trek podcast at this moment. I was just remembering Picard Season 2 earlier today. Just, I don't know why my brain wandered to it, and what a hell of a thing that was. I just remember, I have the image of Patrick Stewart getting hit by the car is like seared into my brain. Real good stuff. Voyager's over. Season 1 is over. We'll be moving on to Voyager Season 2. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hope you enjoyed the coverage of Season 1. Let us know what you thought the best and the worst episode it was in that season. Season 2 kicks off with the 37s, and it's a full season of Star Trek, Clay. So we're back to 26 episodes for that.
Buckle in.
Buckle up. Buckle in. We'll see where it goes. I guess that's it. So there's no good YouTube video for this. We'll just close this out with a sort of State of the Union. So my back hurts. I have to stand up to do this recording. And I'm not recording that because I don't want to give you guys just this shot of the light behind my head or something like that. So we won't have a YouTube video for a couple weeks. And then at that point, Clay, I think we just have to recalibrate and refigure what we want to do for YouTube videos at that point, whether or not it's worth it to do the video. We'll think about that. And so we're just going to have simple videos, headliner videos until that time comes. You can check out all the other shows on the channel, and they're also at their podcast RSS feeds. Anything else, or are we done and we're on to Season 2? Do you have anything else you want to say?
Have you watched any of Kenobi?
No.
Yeah, that's...
Is that over yet? It feels like it's been on for a while.
It's got 2 more episodes to go.
Do you want to save it for Patreon, or do you want to give your final thoughts here about our quick thoughts?
I'll wait. I'll save till the end of the season. We talk about it a little bit on the 2 episodes the 2 Patreon episodes that you weren't on.
Yes. You talked about it with Christian too?
A little bit, yeah, okay. A little bit towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hang on to that. I'll maybe when we do the next content consumption.
Yes.
I could talk about that. Rotten Horror and Badass are still going. Things have been a little bit in flux the past couple weeks because I've, all around we've run out of buffer episodes, so I've been kind of like shifting things around quite a bit. So, but we're still going.
It's like the one that got away. You just didn't realize what you had when that buffer was here, and then it's gone, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
it was so much better with the buffer.
When you're planning these things out week to week, especially when there's multiple people involved and you got to schedule things, it's like you take a week off and all of a sudden it's like, fuck, we took a week off, but now we have to do like 3 weeks in a row if we want to keep up with the shit. So, that being said, we also have on Patreon, Amanda and I are doing the Stephen King second string. June will be Christine, which I'm excited about because it's one of the few John Carpenter movies I have not seen.
Oh, nice.
And I specifically didn't want to cover it because I figured we would do it at some point on the show. Sorry, I didn't want to watch it because I figured we'd do it at some point on the show. And it's my birthday month, so that's fun. Get to do a John Carpenter episode for my birthday. However, I do have COVID a day before my birthday, so that has ruined all of those plans. So,
yeah, the orgy is canceled.
Yeah. Yep. All those
female
tests.
Condoms gone to waste.
I've just got a dishwasher full of diaphragms, and I've got nowhere to put them.
Yeah, that's too bad. Well, are you turning 38? Is that what you're turning?
I will be 38. Yes,
38.
This is my Homer Simpson anniversary.
Oh, is that how old Homer's supposed to be?
Yes, I thought that would be the 40. I don't mind so much, but when you find out that you're the same age as Homer, everything starts kind of coming into view a little bit more. So
yeah, you got better hair than Homer, so it's not all. Yeah,
I know. I kind of have that one episode where he uses the hair product and all of his hair grows back. That's kind of the hair that I have, luckily. Still, especially I don't know if I've mentioned this because crazy shit comes up on these shows. Every one of my male cousins on my mom's side was bald before they were 30. Mm-hmm. And somehow I managed to miss that bullet.
Do you think do you think have you ever thought about what would have happened if you'd have gone bald at like 20, like some guys do? I think it would have been devastating to me.
Yeah.
It would have been real rough.
I think so. Yeah.
Not that I had some supreme confidence in the first place, but like
I was just going to say, I was self-conscious enough about everything else that I think I actually was like legitimately terrified of that happening. Because I do remember there was a handful of months where every time I took a shower, it was like, I just have a pound of hair like on my hands from washing my hair, and I don't know, I must be losing my hair. And it turned out that the shower head was just fucked up and we didn't have very good shower pressure, so it wasn't rinsing the hair off of me. And so it made me really paranoid that I was going bald, but it was just a water pressure issue.
I was hoping it was so much pressure it was just blasting the hair off of your head or something and it grew back. Fine line
you got to walk if you don't want to step out of the shower completely bald.
Yeah, it would have been up there. Yeah, I would have. It would have been. Because I'm like losing my hair now, but I don't care at this point. But like if you're 20, it's like that's like a devastating thing. So I feel for all our bald listeners who are out there and bald prematurely. But
I do have one kid that I went to high school with who in high school he was known for the fact that he had this like bustling, luxurious head of long blonde hair.
Yep.
And then when I went to my 15th high school reunion, he was bald as a cue ball. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And even he was like, yeah, it was pretty tough.
He flew a little bit too close to the sun, like Icarus there. You can't flaunt that.
Yeah.
Tempting the gods to punish you. All right, we're done. That's it for Voyager Season 1. We're on to Season 2. Check out all the other content. Patreon.com/The Pensky File exists, and you can support the show there. And that's about it, I guess. All right, cool. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time.